We are joining you now with a breaking news update from the Durham Freeway, where a demonstration has shut down the northbound lane since about 5:15 this evening. So now about 2 hours and 15 minutes into this demonstration, it appears those people are ready to leave.
So let's take a live look at that scene. Our photographer there providing us this picture. And we just heard over bullhorns about 5 minutes ago, Steve, Durham police warning the crowds that they were not allowed to be there, giving them a 15-minute warning to leave the highway. We saw many of them had been seated on the highway in the northbound lane, stood up, and that warning came. They seemed to be kind of dispersing possibly, but we can see those officers there lined up very near that group that is, again, protesting what's happening in the Middle East here in Durham on the highway. Again, as you mentioned, been there since 5:15, created complete gridlock during rush hour traffic for many people in the area tonight, leaving their cars, trying to find out exactly what was happening.
Yeah, miles of backups on the northbound lanes of the Durham Freeway as people were leaving I-40, headed northbound into downtown Durham. They faced these complete slowdowns and shutdowns. There was a detour where people were getting off at Briggs Avenue, and that's what the DPD has been doing for the past hour and a half or so, detouring people, getting people off at Briggs Avenue. And now finally it does appear that these people are obeying the DPD orders there, saying they were in violation of various laws by blocking the Durham Freeway and telling them they were going to be subject to arrest if they did not disperse by 7:40. So just about 5 minutes after that warning, these people do appear to be leaving. So they, as we say, they at about 5:15, they sat down in the northbound lanes, blocking rush hour traffic entirely. And then just a few minutes before 6 o'clock, they did negotiate with the DPD to get out of one lane of traffic. And that's when traffic was able to get by. That backup that had been there for the better part of an hour, people were able to get by. And then a few minutes after 6 o'clock, they sat back down in the middle of the freeway, blocking traffic once again.
Durham police tweeting out that there were two protests possibly that were happening, possibly tied to the same group. We did send crews out to look for that second protest. We didn't find much, but we did hear from our photojournalist on the scene there is that a lot of people that were not gathered on the highway were very close nearby or on the bridge over that highway, joining in with chants, signs, and flags there, making their positions and their voices known on the conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah, it was Mangum, the Mangum Street Bridge there over the Durham Freeway. So these people who were blocking the northbound lanes, they are getting up and leaving now. This is what it looked like earlier. This was 5:15 or so, 5:30. When we shot this video, we had a breaking news crew immediately there on the scene. This is how this all began. That group of demonstrators calling for a ceasefire in the war in the Middle East, blocking the northbound lanes. And as Lauren mentioned, there was a second protest that the DPD notified the public about that was happening near the DPAC, just up the street from this at Mangum and Pettigrew, the northeast side of the DPAC. That intersection was shut down as well. So you can see there are a lot of other people associated with this group there on the streets surrounding the Durham Freeway. But the breakthrough moment coming right now for the DPD and their negotiations with these demonstrators to leave, so the Durham Freeway northbound should entirely reopen in the minutes ahead.
Our reporter Jamise Price was here in Raleigh, and she's responding to that scene, heading over to Durham, and says that she's hit traffic in many different areas just trying to make her way over there. So it seems, even though the highway has been cleared, that deadlock and that gridlock that was there on the highway has cleared. It has had some residual ripple effects around Durham, people having a hard time getting around tonight. I did check. There was no show at DPAC, so that's good news there. That's the exit people would use to get off the Durham Highway freeway there to access DPAC. So good news there. But again, police are still having to respond to that situation. And we did see earlier tonight, Steve, they sent tow truck drivers down the highway, and we were kind of curious to know, were there cars blocking? We knew there were people and bodies on the road, but we didn't quite figure out what those tow trucks were doing. But back out here live now, you can see they have dispersed and they are getting off to the side of the highway there, I guess agreeing to comply with police's orders. So this is a peaceful ending to this situation, thankfully.
Yeah, there was an intriguing moment we watched live as it was happening here on Eyewitness News. You mentioned they brought in 3 tow trucks, and it looked like the demonstrators had parked some cars. That's how this demonstration began, by blocking the traffic lanes there. They parked their cars, it would appear, got out, and then sat down on the roadway there in the northbound lanes. That other shot we had from the DOT cam really helps you understand exactly where we're talking about. Right here in the heart of downtown Durham, that's the DBAP, the Durham Bulls Athletic Park, right there in the background. This is a little bit higher shot than we're seeing from our breaking news crew. So you can see those people are walking up the on-ramp there. That's the Mangum Street on-ramp to the northbound Durham Freeway. That's where those people are walking. They're leaving, going back to their cars. And we see traffic getting back back on the Durham Freeway there. So in a few minutes, the DPD, I'm sure, will be reopening those lanes. They're trying to get those are the flashing lights, obviously, Durham police vehicles there, trying to make sure that there's no traffic interference with these people as they get off the highway. Shirley
Police Chief Patrice Andrews seems to have communicating with her officers there. We noticed when they first responded, they kind of stayed away from that group. They stood back. They didn't really interact much. And at some point they approached, they had some conversations. The group stood up out of those lanes of traffic. They were able to reopen the traffic, and then they sat down again. And at some point tonight, we've kept a look at this shot throughout the night, Steve, and we noticed they seemed to be getting comfortable. We saw them hand out blankets and drinks, so we didn't know how long they were willing to be there on the roadways, but it seems like they have complied with police's orders to leave the highway and retreat.
And after about 2 hours and 20 minutes, this is coming to a resolution, a peaceful resolution. The Durham Freeway is about to reopen after this group of demonstrators that shut down the northbound lanes at Mangum Street, leading to rush hour backups for miles. It is resolving itself, and we will have it covered tonight on Eyewitness News at 11.
We'll see you then. Good night.